Welcome to Arlington, Texas. It's the third largest city in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, after, of course, Dallas and Fort Worth. It's home to 400,000 people, Six Flags Over Texas, the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, and a thriving university. It's not, however, home to a citywide bus system. Indeed, Arlington has the distinction of being America's largest city without any form of fixed-route transit network. By that, I mean transit that runs on a set schedule on set routes. Yes, there are no public, general-use buses in a city with an urban population greater than that of New Orleans, Pittsburgh, or Cincinnati. So how do car-free or car-light people get around Arlington without transit? The only way to find out is to go for a ride? Well, as it turns out, Arlington hasn't left its citizens completely high and dry. Instead, they've partnered with Via, a New York-based software company, to run a microtransit service all across the city using minivans, some of which are wheelchair accessible. Microtransit like this is pretty common in American transit these days. It's essentially rideshare, with a bus or van carrying multiple people at once. Riders order their trips on an app a lot like Uber or Lyft, and the app creates a route for the driver combining people's journeys. Microtransit is still public transportation. Your trip is taxpayer subsidized, and you often have to share with other riders. In theory, it gives riders a faster, more direct journey and eliminates routes or deviations with no ridership. Now, in many cases, microtransit has been used as a first-mile or last-mile solution, such as in Jersey City, where Via vans feed into bus routes and the Hudson-Bergen Light Rail. But Arlington takes microtransit to the next level, running Via vans as the sole means of everyday mass transit for a city that's almost 100 square miles in size. Outside city limits, they also serve an interchange point with Fort Worth's Trinity Metro buses. And they serve Center Point DFW Station on Trinity Railway Express, the commuter train that connects Dallas and Fort Worth. That's where Kalkidan and I are beginning our journey.
I'm getting on my vitamin D supplements, people, okay? I'm going back to Massachusetts. It's dark and depressing.
We want to go to this restaurant, an Ethiopian barbecue fusion joint in the southern bit of Arlington. The drive between these points is one of the longest possible journeys on Arlington's Via system, so it'll be a good test to see just what citywide microtransit is like. Okay, we are downloading the Arlington Transportation app. Click open. We're gonna allow it to use our location. We're gonna click get started. And as you can see, we are at Center Point DFW Airport Station. The area in red is an area that microtransit will not serve. You can see that this area is an, exclave of the service area. Okay, this is a little annoying. You can't add or subtract from me. It's always 1. I'm tapping plus, tapping minus, nothing is happening. But I can add an extra rider, and they have a wheelchair option. That's nice, but Kalkidan does not need a wheelchair. We'll click done, and then we'll put in smoke and ash barbecue. That's all the way down in the south of Arlington. We are now finding the perfect ride. Let's see how long this takes. Okay, low availability, book now. Estimated arrival 310, not bad. It's $6 for the two of us. That is a pretty good deal. Book this ride. Processing my request. Let's see what happens. We are currently experiencing very high demand and all our seats are filled. Please try booking again in a few minutes.
So we just did.
Are you serious? Yeah, so this is what I was afraid of. See, a common critique of microtransit is that it only works well if there is relatively low demand. If more people are ordering very specific trips in minivans that couldn't even hold my wife's extended family, wait times are going to be higher, while other people are being served. But thankfully, I think this time around it's a software issue, not a demand issue. Please, please, please. Aha, here we go. Ride is 1 minute away. We got Mohammed in a silver Toyota Sienna, and he's gonna take us right on down to the restaurant. For $6? Okay, not bad. Ready to get your barbecue on, Kalkidan?
Stars are bright, deep and wide, deep in the heart of my stomach.
So the van pulled up almost immediately. There's a bunch of people getting off. So I'm guessing that this is a fairly popular destination. So I'm gonna guess going to or from here is probably gonna be easier since a lot of people want to go here. All right. We jump on board and take off south towards Arlington. The passenger sitting behind us just so happens to be a former VIA driver herself. Apparently, at least when she was driving, her van was pretty regularly full, with lots of repeat customers who appreciated the system. Vans are owned by VIA, rather than being city-owned or privately owned like an Uber vehicle, and drivers have different shifts that they can be assigned or choose between, with more simultaneous shifts taking place during peak periods. Riders are also advised to budget up to 1 hour for travel. Our $3 per person ride is projected to take about 40 minutes, so I suppose we're lucky. The first several minutes of our journey are taken by highway, deviating to service streets only when our fellow passenger's destination is nearby. This journey reminds me of when I took Tampa's bus system from their airport to downtown. That bus took a busy stroad lined with stops that paralleled a much faster highway, losing a lot of potential speed in favor of serving more stops despite only a small handful of people getting on or off during the journey. In principle, I think Tampa's model is still better, because it creates more options, and keep in mind I rode it in the evening after peak travel time. But Arlington's way of doing things is much more convenient for us. And actually, I feel like this is a reason why microtransit has the support it does. If you were to ask 10 random Arlington residents if they'd rather use a cheap van that takes them straight from their origin to their destination, or walk to a crowded fixed-route bus that takes them most of the way there on a high-use corridor, most of them would probably pick the microtransit. So I'm trying to zoom out, and the app keeps automatically zooming in on our vehicle, but basically it looks like, if I can get this into the frame and hold it there, okay, I give up. But it looks like we are going to make 2 deviations before we get to Smoke and Ash. Interestingly, our fellow passenger isn't dropped off right at her door like an Uber. Instead, she's dropped off at the curb outside of her housing complex, a bit more like a bus. Another rider gets on there, and he readily opens up to me about his experience with VIA. According to him, the service is inconsistent in the pickup locations it assigns, and drivers can be rude, play loud music, or drive poorly. Today's driver thankfully is/does none of these things. Update, we are doing another pickup. Our drop-off time has now shifted to 3:30. Yet another rider then joins us, a local college student on the way to his job. For him, VIA is an affordable lifeline to get to class and work. But do you know what's an affordable lifeline to get your next Classy Whale videos early with the occasional extra bonus video? It's obviously my Patreon, where for less than the cost of a VIA ride, you can support this channel and the videos you love. It is definitely wild to be driving around this sort of sprawly suburbia type of development and not see any bus stops or signs or benches or anything like that. Like even areas like this, like in Nova or Sacramento, where I filmed the light rail video, every few blocks you see a bus, you see a bus stop, you see, infrastructure for public transportation. And so you don't right away realize it's missing, but like I've realized I'm wired to expect that in this sort of place, and there's nothing. We're on the only transportation, and it's all app-based. It is also worth noting that despite this being a fairly religious part of the country, there is no VIA service on Sundays, but that church we just passed has a bus, so perhaps they run a route for their faithful congregants. So how did Arlington end up here, with a city transportation network that's mostly minivans? Well, it wasn't always this way. It used to be that Arlington simply had no public transit system whatsoever. 3 separate ballot measures from 1980 to 2013, meant to bring transit to the city, failed at the ballot box, according to Wikipedia. A single pilot bus route known as the MAX, Metro Arlington Express, was tested starting in 2013, but this commuter-oriented service was canned at the end of 2017, with VIA rolling out that same year. Arlington also now has a bus trolley for tourists, they run ADA paratransit, and they've been experimenting with autonomous, on-demand vehicles as well. But there's no regular bus or rail, and there isn't yet a strong push to make that a reality. Unless you count the city's new pilot to have a slightly larger van running on a set schedule on a particular high-demand route, which seems very bus-like to me. Also, for those of you who I'm sure commented earlier that my battery was low, there's actually a charging outlet in the van that I'm able to use. So I'm not gonna lie, it is a little annoying to be sitting here in the middle row, and then have people in the back constantly getting in and out. I do realize that if I was a regular rider on this service, I'd probably by default sit in the back, so no one had to climb over me. Because every single time we've picked someone up or dropped someone off, I have had to get out of the vehicle just so they don't have to like awkwardly clamber over me, which is a little different than the experience of riding a bus. But again, $6 basically an Uber. Now obviously, if you're the type of person who usually watches this channel, you're probably feeling pretty critical of Arlington's transportation decisions, and I don't blame you. But before I just pile onto the system, I want to give credit where credit is due, because overall, I was pleasantly surprised by my experience on VIA. It was cheap and functional, got me to where I needed to go, and seemed to be helpful for our fellow riders as well. I think microtransit can be pretty great when used thoughtfully, and it was really convenient for our longer trip, while costing a fraction of what an Uber would. And also, consider that Arlington is very much a car city. Literally Google it, and a picture of a highway interchange pops up. Only 4.7% of Arlington residents don't own their own cars, compared to 8% nationwide or 13% here in Boston, and many Boston commuters wish the number of people who did not drive was higher. Mind you, I still don't think a microtransit-only approach is an ideal one here, but one can sort of understand why Arlington went with it just by getting to know the place. Okay, have I said enough nice things to make this fair and balanced? Yes? Okay, constructive criticism time. First of all, buses are simple. You go to a stop, you pay your fare, it's supposed to always come at the same time, and you always know about how long it will take to ride. Microtransit requires more flexible thinking and technological know-how to navigate. It takes education to get people to routinely use the system. Then, like I said, when more demand is placed on a system like this one, it's hard to meet the demands of lots of very specific trips. It would be easier to lump all those people into a single vehicle, heading generally in the same direction, i.e. a bus. You could even use VIA to get farther flung people to the bus. And with fixed route transit taking the bulk of the demand, the wait times on microtransit would in theory be shorter. But from the way VIA is designed in Arlington, it seems to assume that this level of demand will seldom if ever happen. But then, there's downtown Arlington, which we kind of skipped around, UT Arlington, and the nearby AT&T Stadium, where the Dallas Cowboys play, go Birds, and where the World Cup is set to have multiple matches in 2026. Commuter trains here in Boston get super crowded for big events. Here's the train to Salem on Halloween of this year. So I could only imagine how demand would outstrip supply with only VIA and event-specific shuttle buses serving big games. I took Kalkidan to a rodeo later that day in the Fort Worth stockyards, crowded as usual on a Saturday night, and thought, there's no way I wouldn't be waiting a long time for a VIA back to the hotel if it ran here. And I don't think that this next point is a priority for the leadership in Arlington, but I don't believe minivan-oriented development is a thing. Just saying. Regardless, in our particular use case, we finally arrive at our stop about 14 minutes behind our original estimated drop-off time. And now, we just have to walk a tiny bit to get to our restaurant. So sometimes they won't exactly drop you off exactly at the spot you want to go to. I just said exactly twice, 3 times now. In our case, we are having to walk across this deserted parking lot. Kalkidan is more prepared than I am.
Yeah.
But here it is, Smoke and Ash Barbecue. So here's the shopping plaza where the restaurant is. Wow, New York Times recognized. Don't mess with Texas or Ethiopia. Guy Fieri has been here. And here is the food. You excited?
I'm so excited. I'm very happy.
Thank you everyone so much for watching. Have you ever ridden Arlington's microtransit or a system like it? How do you think Arlington could phase in fixed route transit, or do you think they should? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next week.
I would eat this every day if I lived here. I'll be so thick, you guys would recognize.
Cantar esta canción para mi gente con una pasión